Say hi, Misty. Welcome to another reflections video for the Quilling Corner. It has been a massive week, to say the least. For this video, I'm going to break it into 3 sections. So what happened in the last week, my reflection for today, and what I'm working on and what you can expect coming up. So what happened this week? On Saturday morning, I shared the interview that I did with Licia, and it got actually an incredible reception. I was blown away. I would have been happy. Like I met up with Licia on Friday, and we were discussing how we would be happy if maybe 10 people watched the video. And at last count, I think there's about 160 views on it, which is just mind-blowing. I'm blown away. And it was quite cool to get a share from the English Quilling Guild. Shared my video. So the other exciting thing is a slight update to my channel, which you may have noticed in the thumbnail design. I'm new to the world of YouTubing and thumbnail design and what works and what doesn't. And my brother offered his help, and I think it's really good what he's done. So if you look through at the videos now, like this is what the thumbnails used to look like, and this is what they're going to look like moving forward, which I think it's an improvement. So it still incorporates the colours. So how-to videos are sort of like the pink quarter, artist interviews are yellow, book review is blue, and these reflections will be green, but it's just done in a slightly more aesthetically pleasing way, and the dimensions fit the YouTube thumbnail size. So I think it's an improvement. Let me know what you think. So that leads to today's reflection, that change in thumbnail design. What I want to talk about and reflect on is the importance of making sure you don't cut corners on the final stretch of anything you're working on, anything you do in life, because that last bit, that last 20% counts for 80% of what you see. It's otherwise known as the Pareto principle. So say, for example, when you make a cake, you might have the most delicious recipe and cook it to perfection, but you serve it and it looks terrible. People's first impression is the look of the cake, and if it looks a bit funny, that's not great. So even though you've gone to massive amounts of effort to make the cake taste delicious, the final bit, like making sure it's presented nicely or doing the icing nicely or making sure it's round or whatever, that's really important. Same goes for writing an essay or giving a speech. The content can be fantastic, and you can spend a lot of time researching and working on the content and building up your argument and everything. But when you go to submit it, and you didn't do a final check for typos or just small grammatical errors, that really jars the reader. And so yes, it could be a really interesting essay, but it's really hard not to notice the spelling mistake. It's important not to cut corners when you're doing the QA at the very end of it. The other thing are these videos, or I put so much time and effort into setting up the shot, thinking about what I'm going to talk about, recording it and editing it. That is where the bulk of my time goes. And the thumbnail at the end was an afterthought. Like I didn't even think of the thumbnail until a video was uploaded and I'm just about to hit publish. It really was an afterthought. But the thumbnail is what you see first, and whether you're going to click on it is pretty dependent on that thumbnail. It doesn't matter how good the content is and how much effort I put into it. That thumbnail is what you see, and based on that, you will or you won't click it. It really just sort of highlighted to me, the importance of that final bit. Like it almost, if you don't put in effort on that final mile, it almost discounts all the work that you've done before. So, like, think about it. If you're running an actual marathon, like a marathon is 42 miles. It's not good enough if you run 41 miles. You haven't finished the marathon, and that final marathon is the most important one because that's what gets you across the line, and you can't cut corners there. Yeah, and I think it also kind of links back to the interview with Licia that I posted on Saturday. Like, I am not exaggerating when I say this. I spent about 80 hours editing that footage, just editing. So as a quick breakdown of what went into that interview, I did quite a bit of research on Licia's pieces and, you know, everything that she's done over the years. I had met her last year as well. I had to work up the courage to actually call her out of the blue and ask her if she'd be keen to be interviewed. So then the next thing is I had to figure out how that was going to work. Like, you know, do I have the right cameras? Do I have the right sound equipment? I put a huge emphasis on the sound quality, so I hired some decent sound equipment because I feel like, you know, I'm using a sound recorder right now, but I only have one of them. I don't have two, so I needed to have mics, and I placed high importance on that because I personally found it doesn't matter how good an interview is, if the audio is bad, it is really hard to listen to. So I had to hire some sound equipment because I don't have my own. Then the next thing was actually meeting her and working out how we're going to set up the shots and setting up just how we were going to set up the cameras, the pieces we're going to have in the background and what's going to be in front of us. That took about an hour and a half. And then we finally had the interview and we recorded, I think, for about an hour and 40 minutes. So yeah, we recorded for about an hour and 40, but what you see and what's actually being posted is 52 minutes. So all that excess, that was me editing all of that out over about 80 hours. So the reason why it took so long, and next time it won't take this long, was because, I mentioned this last week, the camera that I'm recording on right now, it has a separate microphone, so it connects separately to the camera. And when I transported it to Licia's house, I took it all apart so that I could take it in my backpack. And then when I put it all together, I plugged it in, but I didn't connect it properly, and so that overwrote the sound. So I was filming, but not recording any sound. And so one thing when you're editing film, you'll see, like, you know, you've got the picture, but then when people are talking, they make sound waves with their voice. And so because we were wearing microphones, I was getting good quality sound from the microphones, but I only wanted the picture from the camera, but I still need to be able to line that up. So when I see the sound waves, like, I can hear what's being said, and you can do it just by hearing it. And that sort of gets you to a certain point. But then beyond that, you need to be able to actually see the sound waves to line them up. So, you know, in old school films, how they go action and clap the clapper, that snap really peaks the sound waves. And that's how you can line up the sound recording and the video so that the two sound waves line up. And that's what I was relying on. I wasn't going to use that sound in the final product, but I needed it to help me with the editing process. And not having the sound waves was a huge problem. Second part of the problem was this: all my cameras, I only have two cameras. I have one DSLR that I'm filming on right now, and I have one point and shoot camera. They are photo cameras. They are not video cameras, and I learnt this the hard way. So basically what that means is a photo camera, apparently this has something to do with US tax law. A photo camera can have video capability, but if its primary purpose, and the reason why you're buying it, if its primary purpose is to take photos and it's not primarily a video camera, there's an inbuilt setting that after 12 minutes the camera will start a new film, if that makes sense. So it'll film for 12 minutes, then it'll shut off, and it'll shut off for a second, so it'll lose a second's worth of footage, and then it'll make another 12-minute film. And so, as opposed to an actual video camera, that it'll just keep recording either until you press stop or until the battery runs out. So I learned that the hard way. So we were filming for an hour and 40 minutes, and so the DSLR had an hour and 40 minutes worth of footage in 12-minute chunks, with a second missing in each of those 12-minute chunks, and no sound. So it took, like, just lining up all the film, like, I had my point and shoot recorded its sounds, that was fine, but, you know, there was two camera angles that I was filming from. There was one where it's showing both me and Licia, and one that was just on Licia. And so the one on Licia is fine, but the one on both of us didn't record the sound, and the only thing I had to go on was our mouth movements and what I could see we were talking about. So I couldn't hear anything, and I just had to line it up, and it took forever. I can't even exaggerate how long it took, because whatever an hour and 40 minutes divided by 12 is minus 1 second. So it's not as even as if I can just line them all up exactly, because there's a second missing in between each 12. And yeah, so that in itself was probably about 10 days just to get it in a state where everything was lined up. So there's 4 things sitting on top of each other. There's the DSLR camera, there's the point and shoot camera, there's Licia's microphone, and then there's my microphone. So all these 4 things in my video editing had to be lined up, and because this camera didn't record the sound, it took me like an extra 10 days when it shouldn't have. Anyway, so that is the reason why it took so long to post. But once I did that, I am getting to the point, I promise. Once I did do that, the next thing the thing that I spent the most amount of time on was finessing the final product. And this is what I care a lot about. Like, I wanted to make sure that the B-roll, which is like, you know, pictures of or recordings of Licia's work when she's talking about it. So rather than just seeing her talking about it, sometimes I'd overlay her with whatever piece she was talking about, or a technique, or something like that. I wanted to make sure the timing was as good as possible. I wanted to make sure the cuts were good. And yeah, and even I had a soundtrack throughout. I had this one song, and at certain points I'd play the music and it would come on and off. And so when she was introducing a new piece, and like when she was finishing talking about one piece, the music would come on, and then you'd see that piece, and then as she starts talking about it, the music would fall away again. And I wanted that. I mean, it's not perfect. I'm not saying that I got it perfect, but I got it to a point where I'm really proud of it. And that part of the editing process, that on its own, I'd say took about a week. So it was a huge amount of effort. And I have mentioned this before, I do have a full-time job. So basically I would work on it for about an hour and a half every morning. And then I would work on it for 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours in the evenings, and 4 or 5, 6 hours on weekends. So yeah, it is no exaggeration to say just the editing of that film was about 80 hours. But I'm not complaining. Like, I'm choosing to do this, and I really enjoy it, but it really made me appreciate, just like when I'm watching a TV show or a movie, how much effort has gone into making that, how much hours, how many people, and how you can have an entire career in sound design or being the sound guy. Like, that on its own is a stressful job, and like I didn't want it to be an afterthought. I wanted to put a decent amount of effort in, but it's like my focus was interviewing Licia, but there's so many other things that I had to be aware of, like, you know, the camera setup, having 2 cameras, having sound recording, you know, making sure I've got enough B-roll to overlay, like picking the right soundtrack, you know, having the introduction, like all these things, and you know how long it should be. All these things, it took a lot of time, and I learned so much, and yeah, I'm excited to do it again. Yeah, I kind of rolled in together what's happened this week with my reflection, but the reflection is basically not cutting corners on the final mile. So what I'm working on this week, I'm almost at the point where I've finished the big logo that I'm making. So I'm making it with rolled up bits of paper, like magazine pages, and I roll it into a big tube, and I'm making it like in a big circle, and I'm going to put the quilling quarter on top. So I reckon I'll probably finish that tonight, to be honest, maybe. So I'll probably show you that this time next week, I hope. The other thing I'm working on is, I saw on Instagram there is a Quill November challenge that I have decided I am going to take part in. So the whole challenge is there's 30 days in November, and each of those 30 days has a prompt. So for example, the 1st of November is a cherry, 2nd is geometric, 3rd is candy, and each day there's a different prompt. And the whole point of it is that you post a quilled creation of that theme each day. So on the cherry theme, I started making these little cherry earrings. So again, that's using the same technique that I showed last time, where it's like 2 hemispheres and then you glue them together. And so they might be a little bit too small, I'm not sure, I might make another one a bit bigger, but I think they're really cute. I like them. The other thing that I'm working on is the Friday video. So Friday will be a how-to video. I'm going to show you how I made this quilled orchid. I'm recording the audio to this at the moment, and yeah, I'll edit that throughout the week and have it ready for you on Friday. So that is it. I wonder if I have gone over 12 minutes and I have lost a second. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's everything. If you haven't seen the interview already, I highly recommend watching it. Licia is just amazing. The pieces she has created, they are so inspiring. Like how she has created like the cakes, the succulent wreath, and explaining her process behind it. It was fantastic, and I'm so lucky to have met Licia. So yeah, if you haven't already, check out the interview with Licia. And yeah, hope you're having a good week. Hope you had a good weekend. And I will see you on Friday. Goodbye. Matchy wanted to say hello. Matchy. Say hi to the camera. Yeah.